Now let's talk about the PPP and EIDL. PPP is Paycheck Protection Plan and EIDL is Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Most of us know by now that Congress has issued $398 billion for this account, and most of the money has been exhausted. Now they are trying to issue additional $250 billion for next round of payment to small businesses, to make sure you are on the line. Now, how do you determine? PPP, especially Paycheck Protection Plan as it sounds, meaning if you have employees and then you're paying wages to them, if you are self-employed people, you are also eligible for PPP. You need to look at Schedule C, line 31, right? If you make $100,000, let's say on line 31, after taking all the expenses, you can divide it by 12 and then multiply it by 2.5. So let's say that 10,000, for example, $8,000 or $8,500 per month multiplied by 2.5. So you can be eligible up to $23,000 from your self-employed earning. On top of that, you can add any cost to your health insurance, any retirement plan, any lease payment. If you have a mortgage that you have taken before COVID-19, February 15, that interest to that mortgage is also can be added to PPP plan. The good thing about the PPP plan that it's forgivable. It can be forgiven as long as you spend 75% of the money towards payroll. For self-employed people, it's a no-brainer. You're going to spend that money anyways because you are self-employed and you have no income. You need to pay yourself. If you have employees, just make sure those employees are on your books, meaning you're paying them. Now, another thing is for people who get PPP loan, they cannot defer self-employment taxes. As you might know, the Congress came up with, under CARES Act, you can defer employer portion of self-employment tax. You don't have to make the payment, but if you get a PPP loan, you keep making those payments, especially. Now, PPP loan, another important thing that is limited to is up to $10 million you can take, and your employees has to be less than, and if you have less than 500 employees, you are eligible. Up to 6 months, there's no payment. After 6 months, it's 0.5% for 2 years. So it's a short-term loan versus EIDL is a long-term, 30 years. So if you take the loan, but most of the time PPP loan would be forgiven as long as you pay to those employees. If you do not pay it can be converted to a regular loan and interest is 0.5%, and then you have to pay back in 2 years. In the same thing, if you go to the EIDL, the loan amount is $2 million, not like 10 million in PPP, it's $2 million. But now here's the good thing. You never have to provide your previous tax return. You do not have to sign a personal guarantee up to $200,000. The loan amount could be up to $2 million, and that can be added a lot of other items than only payroll and then your your taxes, your insurance and retirement, some other lease and mortgage and all those. Here you can add a lot more things and you take the bigger loan from the bank. And that is, as I said, it's not forgivable, but here's the catch. If you pay from EIDL to your employees, that can be rolled over to PPP and can be forgiven. So if you get $200,000 and then you pay $10,000 in wages, $25,000 can be forgiven. Not exact 25, but approximate a gross number can be forgiven. So get that loan, EIDL. If you see PPP is getting too much complicated for you, just get the EIDL. Self-employment people who are Schedule C, look at your line 31. You are eligible for PPP loan. Talk to bankers, especially I would say talk to small banks. Big banks are busy with other things. Now remember this thing, this loan is given by the federal government. Banks are only administrators. Banks are not the lender. Initially you might have seen those, they were fighting against like how much the loan interest amount would be. Previously came up with a 4%, then they came up with the, I think 1%, then it's 0.5%. So banks are not very happy because they are giving that loan for the lower amount, right? They are only administering the loan, they are not the lender here. So they are very liberal requirements. So please make sure you get those paperwork in order. What you need for PPP is basically your last year payroll records, anything that you can show that you're paying for the employee your healthcare cost. And if you're self-employed, your own health insurance premium would be added. If you have a retirement plan, your profit sharing that you're giving to employees or giving to yourself if you're an S corporation, whatever amount is on line 31 on your Schedule C, and if you're a self-employed individual, the bank will eventually divide that number by 52 weeks and multiply it by 8 weeks. That amount will be forgiven for self-employed people. So what I say, if you make, let's say, $120,000 divided by 52 weeks and multiplied by 8 weeks, that amount will be forgiven. Talk to a small banker, any community bank nearby who you know, especially if you know someone in the bank, that would be plus. So they can help you to get your process. What documentation you would be providing it to them? Ask your accountant last year of your payroll records. If you are self-employed, you need to Schedule C. Now here's the catch for self-employed people. You need to get Schedule C for 2019, not 2018. It's not a very clear what actually the guidelines are, but I'll tell you, even if it's a draft, just make sure you prepared your Schedule C. What about partnership? Partnership, you need to look for the K1, self-employed income. Any income that you're paying self-employment tax. Partnership is going to apply for PPP loan. One partnership is going to apply for all the partners who is getting self-employed income. Can you add, if the partnership also have employees, can you add that employees cost? Yes, you can. So the partners K1 self-employment income portion and the any employees. So look at your 941 or 940, that annual payroll return. So you add that number and PPP. Now another thing is if you are a self-employed individual in a partnership, any health insurance cost also can be added on PPP application. But if you choose to go for EIDL, and if your banker advised you to go for EIDL for a little bit easier process, go for it. And then eventually roll that portion over to PPP and get this loan forgiven. May God bless you. I'll talk to you soon.